Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the TF Tuesday podcast. My name is Tiger Twins, but you can call me Ty. I've been coming out of my cage and I've been doing just fine. I've got to be down because I want it all. It started out with a kiss. How did it end up like this? If you want to find out how it ended up like this, please check out the Patreon. That's TF Tuesday Pod on patreon.com. Please check it out. And thank you to all who subscribe already and are part of the Patreon Discord. Thank you all. You are great. The community is wonderful there. Please hit us up. Speaking of thank yous, I have a guest here today. Would you like to introduce yourself?
I had to keep myself on mute so I didn't laugh during the introduction. Hi, I'm Zill. You may or may not know of me. I'm a photo manipulation artist online, and sometimes I talk on podcasts and live panels. I know I'm very niche. You've probably never heard of me before, but I'm really excited to be here, really flattered to be invited on the podcast. It's been a long time coming.
Yeah, I know. I mean, we've been trying to get you on this forever.
I know. It's just, I disconnected my phone and my internet, and I was only getting letters by a carrier pigeon. And since you are the Brooklyn queen of pigeons, you were able to get a hold of me. So,
Yes, I had to really, work my Chrome network there.
You did. It was truly incredible.
So I have a lot of questions for you. I'm a big fan of the work. Do you mind if I just jump headlong in?
Yeah, I rolled up to this. I was blindfolded because I was told this is a secure location. So I have no idea what you're even going to ask me about. But, let's go. Let's do it.
Oh, great. I love that our security pigeons are doing their job.
They're doing the most.
All right. Well, 4 years. 4 years of podcast work, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it is the podcast's 4th birthday on November 30th, and that feels like kind of insane, honestly. Like, when I realized that, I was like, no, we haven't been doing this for 4 years. Oh god, we have been doing this for 4 years. Jesus.
I mean, I have to admit, like, when I put the number down, I was kind of shocked too. It kind of feels like you've always been doing it, and yet you've just started it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I agree. It feels like, especially just because of the weekly nature, it just feels almost second nature to, like, doing at this point. And at the same time, it doesn't feel like it's been that long. So I hear 4 years, and I'm like, yeah, time is fake. That number means nothing and everything to me all at the same time.
Yeah, time is the slowest and most terrible beast. I was going to make a TF joke there, but honestly, I it's a bit too grave. So I wanted to ask, what was your initial idea in starting up this podcast?
Yeah, so, this is way back when, but essentially one of the things that I thought a lot about at the time, because this was, we were still technically in lockdown-ish, kind of, not really. I know that when we did, like, the first 2 episodes, like, one of them was actually at MFF in 2021, and that was, like, it was a weird vibe. But anyways, we were kind of in, like, the COVID morass or coming out of it, and I had spent a lot of time listening to podcasts before COVID and then, like, during COVID as well. And I guess one thing that kind of struck me was that, I listened to a lot of weekly podcasts, like The Daily, Today Explained, that sort of stuff. And I was like, I would think that of a community of our size, there would be some kind of podcast that was talking about transformation stuff, maybe not necessarily on a weekly basis, because I'm insane, but more because, like, I was like, there should be something. And, like, I went and I listened to some of the past podcasts, like Double Helix, Changing Times, other podcasts who had kind of worked to do stuff within this space before. And I was kind of like, yeah, like, I feel like there is a lot of value in potentially having something like that on a more regular basis, especially because I had at least known that there were ongoing furry podcasts. So I was like, well, if there's furries who can do this, Why can't we? And so that ended up with a whole confluence. Like I did a lot of research on like Spotify, how to like get like an RSS feed, if anyone knows what that is, and like how to distribute podcasts essentially, and like what you need to do to get on like Apple Podcasts, because it's this whole other like native network and blah, blah, blah. And then at the time, I was gearing up to kind of make a podcast, and then talked about it with some other folks, and then it became kind of a joint thing at that point. And then since season 1, it's kind of been something that I was doing primarily, and then of course Libra joined along the way too. So yeah, that was kind of how it came to be. I think one other element that I, at least for myself, thought about when thinking about maybe doing a podcast was that I have a decent amount of experience and background in like improv stuff, acting, interviewing in my like day job and such. And so I figured like, well, I could probably do an okay job at it. I don't know if I'd be like amazing, but I feel like I could do a decent job at it. And that was also kind of part of the impetus to like actually do it in the first place. Because if I didn't think I could do a half decent job, I just would not have done it ever. Because I'm the kind of person who's like, for good and for bad, I don't like failing. So if I thought I wouldn't have been good at it, I wouldn't have done it, basically.
Perfectionism strikes again.
Yeah, it really does.
On that note, I'm glad that you didn't let perfect be the enemy of good. I'm glad that you decided, like, hey, I'm going to do this, even if it's only good and not super perfect. You went ahead of it anyway, and now we're here 4 years later. I think you've done an excellent job, so I hope that assuages the perfection demon.
Thank you. I really appreciate that, too, because, like, there was a period where, especially at, like, the start of season 2, or, like, into even, like, season 3, I was doing functionally a second pass on all the editing at a minimum. I had to do the video editing myself, which wasn't anything grand, but was still like difficult to do on a shitty laptop that was 13 years old. And like, the Audacity files were huge, and I was like listening to every single second of like the recordings to be like, okay, there was like an or an there, I need to cut that out, and like I need to cut out all the dead space and blah blah blah. And it could take me like upwards of like 8 to 10 hours to edit an hour and a bit episode. So I really had to surmount a decent amount of perfectionism, because I realized if I wanted to make this sustainable, I had to, because otherwise like I would just collapse, because there would not be enough time in the day.
Yeah, to relate this to something I'm familiar with, there's a comic book artist who spent a very, very long time making this beautiful graphic novel. I'm talking about like ridiculously detailed from every panel. And it took him about 15 to 20 years to finish it. And a very long time. Or maybe I'm exaggerating it. It might be 5 years. I may have added a 1, but it was an exceptionally long time. So I'm betting more on 15. And at the end of the project, people were like, well, how do you feel about it? And he's like, I wish I would have never done it. I wish I would have just tried to be simple and just told the story, because me being that perfectionist truly harmed my ability to create.
Right.
And it's kind of a crazy notion that someone could let that kind of perfectionism prevent them from giving their art or their message to the world. And I'm glad that you didn't let that happen to you, where you're like, I have to review hours and hours and hours of audio. I'm in the audio hole. I gotta dig.
Yeah. I gotta dig. I gotta dig in deep. I gotta get every single nanosecond of like background noise. Or honestly, like to that point, I will say I'm glad as well. I feel like I didn't necessarily learn a lesson so much as the raw like mechanics of reality just came to bear, in the sense of like, I am a perfectionist, but I am also a stubborn bitch, and my stubborn bitchiness is stronger than my perfectionism. So I was basically like, I want to keep this going. I must keep this going. I'm going to have to stop being a perfectionist, because otherwise it won't keep going, and I can't let that happen, because again, aforementioned stubborn bitchiness. But like, I guess inadvertently I learned that lesson. It is really learning that lesson. I just like, I almost feel like I stumbled into it by accident, really.
just another adage on that. I heard something that kind of made me think twice about my own perfectionism issues.
Mm.
And it's if you don't make time to maintenance your tools will schedule the maintenance for you.
Oh, yes.
And so I'm glad that the spicy brain decided to let you know, hey, maintenance light will go on. I'm not fucking kidding.
Yes. The alarm will start blaring and you will not know what the fuck to do and you will have to figure it out, you know?
Hmm. With that in mind, you've spoken about this on other episodes, but I guess I would like to
Mm.
crystallize it here. What was your initial purpose with this? I know you've spoken at
Mm.
length about how you've wanted to platform other artists. Was that the initial and original intention?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, short answer, no. I think long answer, originally my intention was to create a space in which we could have like thoughtful conversations about transformation topics with various different people in the community who I felt had like perspectives to share on those topics. And so in a lot of the earlier episodes, you'll probably notice that I don't always spend a lot of time talking about the artist's body of work necessarily. I would focus more on like, oh, like let's talk about X topic, let's talk about Y topic. What's your experience with this? I know that you create art that has like these themes or whatnot.
Mhm.
And then I think as time has gone on, I mean, I'd always from the get go wanted to prioritize having like different folks on and such, but I think that grew in importance to some degree because, well, two reasons actually. The first was that, we can have episodes where we talk like in depth about these topics and everything, but at a certain point, you can't just keep talking to the same people because you're just going to hear the same perspectives at the end of the day. And the circle of people that I knew that I felt like could speak to a lot of these topics in a really educational way is only so large. Like that well can only be drained from so many times. And
Mm.
so as that need for like other people and other people's perspectives continue to expand outwards beyond what I would jokingly call my Rolodex, like approaching people who I didn't know and stuff became more important. And then I think the other element was, as I kind of had viewed this as a community project, so to speak, I think the importance of also having people on who I didn't necessarily know and could benefit from having this kind of a platform, I think grew. And I think that also ties in nicely with some of the response to the podcast itself. I think the podcast changed in part because of how people responded to it, because all of a sudden, I was getting people who were asking to be on the podcast, which at first I was kind of like, I don't know if that's a good idea. Like, I don't know if you're going to be interesting to talk to or blah, blah, blah. But like,
Yeah.
as I like went on, I was like, no, actually, that's kind of exactly the perfect thing. I don't know how a conversation is going to go necessarily. And, not every conversation is going to be amazing. But if someone's willing to put themselves out there and I, look at their body of work and I think there's interesting themes at least integrated in, then why not? Like give people an opportunity to speak. And I think, I guess there's a third reason too. One thing that I didn't mention at the start in terms of why I started the podcast, but I think feeds into how it's changed as well, is the fact that I thought a lot about people who haven't gotten to go to conventions. I have been very lucky to go to conventions. I think I've been to like 16 at this point, which is crazy.
Wow.
But one thing I really took away from going to conventions was the conversations I got to have with them. Like I really felt like I understood why I liked transformation and why other people like transformation that much more by having those in-person conversations. And so I think about how a lot of people don't necessarily have the opportunity to go to conventions, and even if they do, there isn't necessarily always going to be transformation focused programming at them. So making this podcast was in a way for people to hear folks talk about transformation in a very normal fashion and kind of destigmatize it a little bit, because I think a lot of people in the transformation fandom carry a lot of shame about their interests in transformation and where it came from, especially when it gets tied up with sexual stuff or with trauma. I mean, we'd always joke about like, so where did you get your TF interest? It came with the trauma. But like, you know, I think that like having the opportunity to hear people talk about it in a normal way is really important, and that was also part of the reason why I wanted to kind of start this project. And it's also fed into how it's changed direction, because the beauty of getting to hear people talk about transformation also comes from hearing different voices. You know, like you can, I mean, people who have been listening to this consistently have heard collectively almost 3 days continuously of my voice. That's a lot. I would be sick of my voice at that point. So you got to have at least other people who are also going to talk about these kinds of things with their own perspectives. And so I think that also necessitated growing the pool of people who might come on, and I think really paved the way towards me thinking more about giving this as like a platform of sorts to people who otherwise wouldn't necessarily have the opportunity to.
Is that also why you've taken such an active role in convention planning for TF meetups? The TF meet and greets are something that you've hosted now for, I think, at least, to my knowledge, at least 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, no, it is. I think the first one I actually did was in, oh geez, four is gonna fact check me on this. I think the first one I did was MFF 2019 with 4Paws.
Shout out to 4.
Shout out to 4. He's a real one.
Absolutely.
We did that one, and then I think COVID hit, so then we didn't do any for a while. So it's probably more functionally like 3 or 4 years of doing them. But yeah, to speak to that, I had my first experience at a convention at MFF 2018. I went to the TF meet and greet. It was ass, and no offense to the organizers. They were doing their best. It was not their fault. But basically, me and 4 were like, okay, we could do this better, though. Like, we could do this better. And so I think after we did the first one and it felt like it had a good response, I definitely was encouraged to do more. And that sort of, like, again, fostering those communications, like you said, I think is part of the reason why I enjoy doing those meetup organizings as well, because you get a similar vibe to what I'm trying to do with the podcast, just in person, which is great. And, you know, I will say that, you know, in a past life, I did a lot of event organizing as well. And so I was able to use some of those skills here. But I gotta say, those meetups can truly be something else, just by a function of what space gets given to me and what time of day gets given to me. Because let me tell you something, the 10 a.m. Sunday meetup for a TF meet and greet vibe in a very large, too large room is very different from getting a prime time on Saturday in a very crowded room that breaks fire codes. Like, we spin the wheel every time we submit to these cons, and I'm always grateful that they put us on the schedule, to be clear. But it really is a bit of a crapshoot in terms of what we get, and we try to make the most of it. And I feel like dealing with that is also kind of fun in a weird organizational hell way. But, like, you know, I don't know. I'm also, like, clearly a glutton for punishment, because I'm like, yes, let me organize things, you know, like the final boss for half of our neurodivergencies, you know, like, yeah, let me at it, you know, so.
Well, shout out to Fernal Equinox for 2 years in a row putting us in a room that felt very much like an oven.
Yeah.
That was incredible. And not in all the good ways, but a shout out to everybody that attended those meetups, and I got to talk to a couple of really lovely people. Once again, shout out to 4. I believe Comic TF was also there.
Yeah.
There were so many
Stormy.
wonderful people. Yeah, Stormy. Love you, Stormy. So with that in mind, with facilitating these conversations, I'm going to ask you a possibly controversial question.
Oh, no.
Do you have a favorite conversation, aka have you had a favorite guest, someone you loved talking to?
Oh, you're making me choose between my hundreds of children?
Unfortunately, yes. You must...
oh, God.
Gun is pointed to your head.
Oh, no. I can't just look at the flowers. I have to pick? Okay.
Walking Dead
Jeez.
reference for the win.
I know, Walking Dead reference. Okay, so I have a cop out answer, and then I have a proper answer. So my cop out answer is probably my conversation with David Mattingly, because like how could I not pick that one? Like he's the cover artist who inspired like a good like at least 25% of this community to get into transformation in the first place. I feel like if you don't pick that, like what am I doing, you know? Like
No, absolutely. I remember when I heard that you had him as a guest, I think that collective like chittering among people was like, is it him? Is it really him? Is that what it is? Like there was definitely electricity about that one, so I don't blame you for
Oh
saying
yeah.
it.
Yeah, and he was just so kind and like in a very grandfatherly like way. Like he was so kind in terms of like giving us his time, and like he spent a bunch of time talking to us before and after the recording as well, me and Libra, and like he was just so kind and delightful. Like like delightful is I think the best word for it. And you know, you're always a bit, especially just because he's older, there's always also a little bit of apprehensiveness in terms of like, okay, I don't know how this conversation is going to go. You know, there's a generational divide, but no, he was fantastic. And in particular, I think with him, at least for me on a personal level, getting to talk to him about how he made the covers was really fascinating, because he was also making those in part through computer programs. And like, that was so much of like, I mean, as a photo manipulator, that's been so much of my focus. So that's my kind of cop-out answer. I actually have another cop-out answer before I get to the real one, because I'm going to delay this. My other cop-out answer would clearly be Libra, because he went from a guest to a co-host. So like, I mean, obviously I enjoyed talking to him enough to bring him on as a host, right? I feel like that's got to be acknowledged. And like, especially in like, I think season 3, when we were kind of figuring out our footing a lot, I think he really helped to focus the podcast in like a specific direction, which I really appreciated. And like he and I have good banter.
Absolutely, your banter. Sorry, your banter has spawned the TF Tuesday Bill.
Yes, there is a bingo card that the patrons use that is solely based off of that.
Also, just to put my just to make sure I throw a dart on the bingo thing, Berserk mention.
Oh
that's
yes,
for
Berserk
y'all.
mention.
Yes.
Yes.
Shout out to everybody who made that. That was amazing.
Yeah. I think it was Shozo FS who made it, the original one. I may be wrong. If I have gone that wrong, I apologize, patrons, but I think I've got it right.
You were real G.
Yes. But okay, I've delayed long enough. This is somewhat supported by metrics, which I think is funny. But I think the guest that I've asked to come back the most number of times, who it didn't end up becoming a host, is Toledo. I think that's a pretty good metric to go by, in part also because I find that he has a very different background in terms of how he originally approached transformation stuff that to me is super illuminating. I mean, I learned what enclothed cognition was from him, which I think is really cool. You know, we had a really good time roasting a lot of the AI bullshit pictures or slop that gets generated of like TF stuff. So that was fun to do. You know, we had him on this season with Unstable Bill. That was probably one of my favorite episodes in a long time. Just all of us like shooting the shit. I mean, Bill, bless his heart, he is like of a very similar wavelength to me, and we share a brain cell. So like having that conversation would have been immensely less listenable to if we didn't have Toledo as a moderating force there, I think. But you know, I think Toledo's really brought a lot to the podcast as a whole, and I really appreciate what he's brought to it. Because again, he's come at a lot of different things from a different perspective than mine. And above all else, I think my favorite thing with the podcast is when I get to learn new things, be it appeals to things I didn't necessarily see an appeal to before, or learning about like historical aspects, mythology. I mean, there's really so much to be mined in this topic, and I just really appreciate it when guests can open my eyes to new things, and I feel like he's done a very good job of that when he's come on too.
That actually kind of rolls into a question I had. I wanted to know if there were anything in particular that guests have changed your mind on or opened you up to that you weren't open to before.
Ooh, that's a good one. Well, I do know that through this podcast, I stopped liking Merge TF, but that's a whole other conversation, and I think we'll get to that later.
Indeed.
But yeah, I feel like I've definitely had my eyes open to specific kinds of transformation. I mean, for one, I think my definition of transformation has definitely been broadened through conversations on here, like understanding how like character development can be a kind of transformation. The aforementioned enclosed cognition, you know, every time I put my fursuit on, I'm Equinox, I'm not Zill, and there's an element of transformation to that, especially because he is a lovable, sneaky little bastard.
No, I've witnessed this shift. I witnessed the transformation, and it does indeed happen.
It's great.
It's yeah. If I'm gonna add to that with I think that that's definitely a side effect of listening to this because I remember the just changing your clothes is a TF. At first, when I heard that, I was like, I don't know about it. I don't know about it. But
I remember a Curious Fox in particular was like, no, that's bullshit. What are you talking about? That's not transfer. We had a very spirited discussion about that. So
yeah. But also, I have found that like it's kind of backed up by science that if you dress in a way that makes you feel confident, it completely changes how you are perceived. It changes your attitude towards others and yourself. There's scientific data to back it up. So I walked away with that one being like, we can't do feels over reels. It's the statement is accurate. We
no,
ball.
it is.
Yeah.
We got a ball with it. I completely agree. But I guess I think one other kind of transformation that I've become more. I mean, I was already into it to a degree, so like take this with like I'm splitting hairs here with the question, but I feel like having Geo on talking about poof TFs was really interesting to me because I think the way in which he articulated its appeal to him definitely made me appreciate it a bit more. And like, I feel like his approach, especially in terms of like writing them, has definitely keyed me more into like, oh, okay, you know what? Actually, I get the appeal of this a bit more because I've always generally been a process person. Like the process of the transformation is where I do all my art and it's like the thing I love. But like I can understand and even enjoy more the poof TF stuff in a way that I don't really think I fully grasped before.
How do you appreciate it? Like, is it something that like you'll take the guess words or look at their art per se and kind of delve in it and be like, all right, yeah, or nah?
Yeah,
Like,
I think with poof TF, it's more like I take the guess at their words. I also think that like, especially when it's written, diving into like the abrupt tonal shift, perspective shift that you get with poof TF is a really interesting challenge to do, like with writing. And I think that like with art as well, I still can like see an appeal in the sense of like you've got your 0% and 100% stage essentially. And you get to see the contrast between the two, and you can also like map like, okay, so this thing stayed and this thing didn't, or like, you know, it's a completely different creature, but like maybe you get to do a cool design with it. An artist that we've actually had on this podcast before, Aegis, does that kind of like approach where he does like a 0% and 100% frame, like kind of contrasted, like with two pictures that I think works really well. And that isn't necessarily a poof TF, but for the viewer it is, right? And I think that that's a really interesting way of like presenting it and definitely turned me more towards like the appeal just as a whole. I have one other one I'll actually mention. And this one's more like I was already into it, but I've grown to have more of an appreciation for it. And that is post TF. And I think in part, and I say this with love, we've joked many times on this podcast about like what happens after. Like it feels like that question gets thrown out a lot, and it can be like jarring and even a little bit annoying sometimes. But at the same time, I found that like, we've had a number of episodes where we actually talked about it. Like I think we had an interlude episode about it. We've had like a debate episode about it. We've had guests who have talked extensively about it. And I feel like my understanding of the appeal for other people, it's different from how I enjoy it, but I understand where they're coming from better now too. And I think part of the appeal, and look, I don't mean to put words in anyone's mouth, but I think a big appeal of it for a lot of people is like solving a puzzle, essentially. It's like, okay, I have this problem, and the problem is I'm now a wolf. How do I go from point A to point B? How do I, create a new routine for myself? And how do I solve all these problems? And if I can solve all these things together, now I get the dopamine release of, wow, I understand exactly how this would work now. That's really satisfying. And again, I don't mean to call people out. I get the sense that that's a big appeal for people. And like, I can see the appeal to that as well. I think for me, though, at least with Post TF, and again, my appreciation for it was already there. It just has increased. I think my central appeal to it was always more about what stories can you tell now with this changed person, and the push and pull between who they used to be and what they are now. So, like stories that were very still centered on the initial change itself and like how that had ramifications. And again, there's also lots of other people into Post TF who like that too. I'm giving lots of caveats, but essentially I just think my appreciation for it has increased. And also I understand better now how some people come at it in an angle that is fairly different, at least from mine.
You said something interesting before about how it allows you to tell very interesting stories, right?
Yeah.
Do you feel that Post TF is something that's focused on more in stories than in artwork?
Yes, I think, well, it's challenging to focus on Post TF in artwork sometimes, unless it's like you devote a lot of resources and energy to it. And the reason why I say that is because, when I think about exploring Post TF, you have one form at that point that you're exploring. You're now making art about that one form, and there's no transformation necessarily in that image. And for a lot of people in this fandom, they're drawn to creating art about transformation. So to then make like a whole like sequence or comic or whatever about what happens afterwards is very intensive. And like, sure, you could like just add it on here or there to different pieces, but then the volume of what you're exploring is still mostly transformation, and then you have some like stuff tacked on. So I feel like for art in particular, if you wanted to like really dig into Post TF, you have to invest a lot of time and energy into it in a way that often has diminishing returns with the audience around this. And look, like, I don't mean to like criticize the fandom for that, because I do think everyone should like show an interest in what your favorite artist is doing, regardless of if it's not necessarily hitting the horny nug, to use a phrase from Angerboda. But like, I really do feel like with art, it's just that much more difficult to devote yourself to it. Whereas with writing and writing in the transformation space, you could do so much with post-transformation while still marketing it to people as a transformation writing story. So like, for example, there was some writing from, I think it was Medkit, who was a guest back on one of the interludes, and it was a pool toy transformation, and someone shared it with me, and they were like, hey, I think you'd really like this, you should give it a read. And I did like it. But what was interesting about it to me was that in terms of the overall body of the text, the transformation itself was probably like, I'm probably going to get this wrong, but it was probably like 20% of the actual story. And the other 80% was investigating either like maybe like there was another like 10% before everything happened, a setup. And then you had like 70% where it was talking about like, okay, so what's happening to this guy now that he's a pool toy? He got tricked by his I think it was his boyfriend at the time. He knew that he was like into pool toys, and they talked about how he might want to become one, but like in reality, he maybe didn't necessarily actually want to become one. It was kind of more of a fantasy, and then he got locked into this form and was treated like a pool toy and blah blah. And just there was a lot of exploration about like what happens now that he's a pool toy. How does he feel? How does he associate with the other pool toys that his boyfriend has also like transformed past lovers into? And like all of this like focus, it's like in this story that is still somewhat a TF story, but like if I look at the body of the text, I'd say it's majority a post TF story. And that's exactly what I mean when I say like it's a lot easier to investigate and appreciate post TF within writing than it is from art, because with art you're going to get a lot more diminishing returns in terms of your audience and what people are looking at it, and that's just kind of an unfortunate restriction of the mediums, I would say, and also I mean of audience tastes.
Yeah, I would agree. There are certain ways, if I may suggest, that an artist
Yeah.
could do it. Pixiv has, is it Pixiv? The Japanese artist site, I believe,
Oh
it is
yeah, yeah.
Pixiv, yeah. So what they would allow you to
Yeah.
do is that you'd have a collection of works, and so you'd have like it would be, even if it was singular images, you could have them all collected. Theoretically, I don't know what anyone uses to post anymore because Twitter is not very artist friendly. Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah.
Um,
It's the Nazi
yeah,
site.
yeah, just Nazis. Um, but also we have Blue Sky, and there was a bit of a kerfuffle with Blue Sky recently, if you are aware.
Yes. Yes, unfortunately I am.
So some people were saying, "Oh, we're going to go back to Tumblr," but we can't go back. We never go back. We only go forward, especially since the adult content ban. So it seems like
Yes.
Fur Affinity is the only place. But if you were to continuously draw someone, let's just say it was Little Red Riding Hood and she TF'd into a wolf,
Mhm.
or original the character, do not steal. And you just continue to draw her trying to get around her grandma's cabin as a wolf, and you tagged it. I think that would be a way to kind of illustrate post TF life and how
Yeah.
she's trying to be whatever. However, that is also something that, since it's not all collected in a nice pile or in a singular document, that could be someone will stumble across a werewolf wearing Red Riding Hood's hood and then just be like, "Oh, I don't know what the hell this is," and then they wouldn't know that it's part of a
Yeah.
larger body of work. So I agree with you with there being caveats. However, brains always try to find ways around little pitfalls like that, don't they?
Oh, they do. They absolutely do. And like again, I think it is doable. It's just with the way that, you know, the reward systems are structured within like social media and like even for Affinity,
Hmm.
there's just not a lot of incentive to really do that, because you're not going to get as many favorites, you're not going to get as many comments, and then you'll be like, wow, you know, I did this thing and it didn't get, you know, the response I wanted it to. So,
Mm.
you know, unless I, you know, am like fully realized in terms of like what my vision is for my art, I'm incentivized to then go back to what was getting me more likes and favorites and whatever. And I mean, look, we've talked about this before on the podcast, like people should make the art they want to make, but it's also naive to ignore the fact that those systems are in place, and that's, in my opinion, part of the reason why there just isn't as much post TF art versus writing, and why it's unlikely to change, at least in the near future.
Unfortunately, I see a lot of writers also kind of getting the short end of the stick with that. You talk about reward system. People seem to
Yes.
like, it's very easy to look at a picture and be like, delicious. And then you hit a button and you're done.
Yes. Yeah. I want to just step in and say I completely agree with that. And
Mm,
also, one of the interesting things I will just say about the perils of being a TF writer is that because there's so much more effort required, definitely like there's almost like a disincentive for people, because, you know, you look at a picture, it takes like 5 seconds and now you've appreciated it, whereas, you know, reading takes time. But I do want to say one thing that I think is really interesting about writing, and in particular the way writing gets rewarded on FA.
mm,
All of the I haven't written much on FA, or at least I haven't posted a lot of writing on FA, but the three pieces that I have posted, at least in my gallery that are still up, the interesting thing about them is they are the ones that seem to have the most longevity in terms of getting reactions, because people will find them like 4 years after I posted them and like leave a like, or like they are the pieces that, if you look from a metrics perspective, have like the continuous growth in views, because people will go back and read them again if they really like them. And I think that's really interesting, because it's a very different, I guess, reward system in massive quotations, but it is technically there. It's just our brains aren't necessarily trained to look at like, oh, this piece has a lot of views, because we don't get a little notification on Fur Affinity being like, someone viewed your writing piece. It's always, oh, you got a notification because someone left a comment or favorited it. But if you look at it from like a views perspective, the writing pieces do a hell of a lot better than they perhaps should, given their like comment and favorite ratio to views, but like they really do a lot better. And I just feel like people don't always necessarily think about that. And I someone else told me about this, and it may have been Angerboat, I don't remember, or ABCD, but like I distinctly remember that coming up at some point, and that really changed a lot of how I think about writing, at least on like posting for FA.
That also kind of, I think a big thing about that also is that you can save a photo to your phone if you really like it, but you could technically download the PDF of the writing, but you have to come back to the page to view it, to read it.
Yes.
Speaking, not to grandmama all of the lovely listeners in the audience, but consider if you have the emotional or social bandwidth of leaving a favorite or a comment on your favorite writer's stories. We love all of you writers who make the TF world go around. You guys are excellent.
Yes, absolutely.
Speaking of that, do you have any favorite writers?
Ooh, so this one's a tough question for me, in part because, especially since the Panini, as I like to call it, my attention span has definitely been impacted. I used to read
blame the TikTok
a lot more. I know, I blame the TikTok. I used to read so much more, and now it's like, God, where did all my attention go? A crumb for my attention span. But, how would I phrase this? Okay, so I have three answers because I am an indecisive Libra. My first answer would be a lot of the really good inanimate content that I like got me onto stuff like Mannequin TF, Pool Toys, that sort of stuff, was written by an artist who I have later learned is kind of a piece of shit. So I don't necessarily want to name him on here, but he wrote a lot of stuff that was on like CYOC, which it's still there, to be clear. And like those pieces like changed my brain chemistry. And I feel like that's like the strongest like praise I can give someone. So it's unfortunate that he is not a good person. But anyways, beyond that, like those pieces changed my life. So that's the first one. The second one I would say, I think the first like written like story that I read that was about TF that had what I felt like was a genuine plot, and therefore had me like actually invested in the characters, would probably be Doran. I think like his writing's really good and like is woefully underappreciated. I think like he just does such an excellent job with crafting characters, crafting stories. And this is especially high praise because a lot of the porn is not necessarily aimed at me as an audience person, but I can still appreciate it. So I would be remiss if I didn't call him out. And then I guess like my third answer, and this is more because it's content that's aimed directly at me. I love Gabriel Moon's stuff. His stuff is very much aimed at my gay ass, and I think he does a really good job in light of the volume of writing that he has to do because it's like his full-time job. I feel like it really is a testament that he's able to come up with and create unique scenarios and storytelling and such when he has to do it so much. So that would be my other answer.
He's kind of like the Stephen King almost of TF writing, where it's like I think he must
Oh
have
yeah.
like a quota that he has to hit every day, and he's just like, yeah, if I don't walk away from this computer having written like 3K words, what am I doing?
Yeah. And I'm like,
The-
what? What? How do you do that?
Mm,
But like, I genuinely like, I think every single, this is going to sound hokey, but I do mean it. Like, I think every single writer that we've had come on to the podcast, generally speaking, brings something unique and new to it. Like, I think of like Angela Quinton and like her amazing writing. I think about Kate Marquette and like her amazing writing. You know, we've had so many incredible writers who have come on, and I think that they deserve just a lot more appreciation. I mean, Medkit, shout out to Medkit too. Like, I already just waxed a lot about one of the stories that it wrote, but like, yeah, I think the writers deserve a lot more appreciation. And I also think that, like, you know, there's something to be said as well about illustrated stories, because I will say that like Abe and Aang do an amazing job with their stuff, like the books that they put out and like the stories that then get illustrated, like that Abe writes and that Aang then illustrates. Like, I have a really special love for them too, and I almost put it. I almost this feels weird to say, but I almost group that separately because it feels somewhat unfair, because like Aang's art is so peak and like Abe's writing is so good, and they get paired together, and I'm like, well, it feels like an unfair comparison to then put everyone else up against them. But anyways, this is a long way of me saying like I think we've been really lucky to have so many amazing writers in this space, and I just wish that there was more appreciation for them. So
definitely. I've been hopping around on people's stories. Gabe is great. Dorn stuff is, in my opinion, peak. We have Megan. I think you've shared a few of his stories with me. I think Evil
yeah.
Cool Toy Boyfriend genuinely had me mad as hell because what do you mean you have a collection? I
He
will
has a
kill you.
collection.
You are evil. You are foul. I will banish you to Patterson, New Jersey. Like,
Oh my god.
please.
The Shadow Realm in
Yes.
Patterson, New Jersey?
Yes,
No.
sir.
That
Mhm.
listen, there's no fate worse than being banished to New Jersey. Shout out to all our New Jersey listeners. But
Yeah. Shout out to New Jersey indeed. How's your trip to the city going? Um,
oh my god, not you throwing shots.
Listen, it's a New
I
Yorker
know you're the
thing.
Brooklyn queen. I know. I know.
Yes.
I understand. It's very funny.
We love you, New Jersey. It's the
Yeah.
sibling rivalry thing. Please change your filtration. You change the filtration of your water system.
Yeah, yeah. You have
It-
water stores. What is going on there? But you have to admit this. I will make you swallow your Brooklyn pride for just one moment. You do fly a lot out of Newark because it's better and it's closer.
Shout out to Newark Airport. Shout out to Newark. Especially to the new terminal they put up. Y'all are pretty
yeah.
baller. I'll give you the
Look, they
I'll
got
give
a
you the
Wendy's in
laurel.
there. They got the
Uh-huh.
Wendy's in there. It's a pretty good Wendy's. I'm just saying.
It is. They have a Shake Shack. I
They
was
got a
like,
Shake Shack.
yeah. I was like, yeah, this is delicious. Fucking New Jersey.
oh god.
To completely come back to Earth. So I have to ask the sister question to favorite writer with favorite artist.
Oh no. Why are you doing this to me?
Because you made me
Oh.
admit I like Newark Airport.
Okay, you know what? Understandable. Have a nice day. Oh, god damn it. Favorite artist I've had on the oh god. Um hmm. Um I'm totally not stalling for time by looking at every single guest that I've ever had on the podcast and trying to pick a favorite child. Okay, I'm gonna do a cop out answer so I can say more than one, because if I don't, I will explode.
Okay.
Okay, so first off, I have to mention Foxy because Foxy had a really large impact on my own art output. A lot of some of my first initial manips were based off of pictures that she had drawn. And part of the reason why I wanted to like do kind of a recreation of them in a different medium was because I loved those pictures so much. I wanted to see myself in them. It was literally a God, I wish that were me. And then I was like, wait, I can make it me. And then went and did that. So like, I gotta mention her because like getting to talk to someone who had such like a huge impact, similar to David Mattingly, it's like, it's so like, you're almost like a little starstruck. It's like, oh my gosh, I was looking at your artwork from like such a long time ago. And now I get to like talk to you now. That's like crazy. So that's definitely one of them. I will also say that like, I think on probably a raw, like I've loved every single piece I've like gotten from them and like their like body of artwork as a whole, probably Aang. I feel like, you know, every single commission I've ever gotten from her has been a banger. And like, again, she's someone who's been around making art that I've always admired for a good amount of time. And in particular, like, you know, the work that she and Abe did on Double Helix, like helped inspire this podcast. So like, I feel like, especially with just how incredible her art is, I have to mention her. Like, I really love her artwork, and honestly has made me, sometimes I feel like it reaffirms my bisexuality. And that's like a weird compliment, but like, I genuinely mean that because I'm like, oh no, I do actually like titty too. So, you know, like that I appreciate.
And to be fair, Aang's fucking attention to detail and their breasticles are fantastic in their drawings.
Oh, absolutely.
Shout out to Aang on that. I long time lurker. Their traditional artwork is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, and you're both Tiggies, so I mean, you know, the Tiggy love is there, right?
Absolutely. The tiger thing of, yes, another big cat. Allow me to stare at you for a while and then go run away. You know.
But yeah, I think one more artist I do want to mention, because again, it's really hard for me to like narrow this down. I do want to mention Bintrong Boss. She is incredible. Just her artwork is absolutely fucking amazing. And like having her on the show multiple times felt like a true blessing. So I would be remiss if I didn't mention her because I love commissioning her. I love her artwork. I feel like she gets a lot of the things that like I'm in like uniquely into. And it means a lot that like, you know, I've gotten to kind of like build a friendship after initially kind of like interviewing her. So like, I really appreciate that too.
Love to hear that. Shout out to Bitcharong. Absolutely baller stuff there, bro.
Yeah, and I love every artist that's been on. I also love every writer that's been on. I'm sorry I was asked to pick favorites. Please do not burn me at the stake.
Yes, please don't. You can attack me. My attack pigeons have a gun trained on Zill. This is not to disparage anyone. Honestly, that's pretty much something I really wanted to touch on. You have gathered such an impressive pageantry of talent on this. Like, I don't think that there's a name that hasn't been on this. Not off the top of my head. You have consistently found other guests that have been like, where did this person come from? Wait a minute, their stuff is baller. What am I doing? Why have I never seen this before? With that in mind, are there people that you want to have on the podcast that you haven't done yet?
Oh, absolutely. I think one of the people I would love to have on, and this is a loophole I'm exploiting because you were asking favorite artists that haven't been on the podcast, but one of my favorite TF artists as well, who I haven't gone on yet, is Otherwords. Otherwords is a powerhouse, just an absolute just a goat really with transformation work, and I just deeply love all of his stuff, and I would love to have him on at some point. So I'll mention him. There's definitely people who I have asked that were basically like, I'm not sure if I'm ready yet to go on a podcast, but like I appreciate the work that you do, and I'm not going to name them because like that would be putting them like on a weird way on blast, and I don't mean to do that, but like there's definitely been a few people that I've asked that weren't interested necessarily in coming on, but appreciate the work that we do, and I would love them to reconsider at some point. So I'll mention that as like a broad swath, but I think the other thing I would say is like, I mean, look, it's always going to be my white whale until I get K.A. Applegate on the podcast. Can I ever truly rest? You know, like I feel like I haven't shot my shot with her yet, but I will at some point, and we shall see what happens. I am very prepared for no, but like I got to try at some point, because that feels like the ultimate white whale for me.
That is podcast final boss, final destination,
Yes.
no items. That is, if you can get that, my friend, I think Olive Garden is in order for you.
Oh yes, the storied hallways of Olive Garden is absolutely how I would celebrate. For those who are completely unaware, as a Canadian, I know, shocking. I am an absolute diehard lover of American restaurant chains, to the point that every single time I've done like a live panel at MFF, I've taken people to go to Olive Garden afterwards. You know, like I am a simp for Olive Garden, the Cheesecake Factory, Outback Steakhouse, Bob Evans, you know, California Pizza Kitchen. I mean, there's so many that like I am just a diehard fan for, and I know that probably sounds insane to most people listening to that podcast, because I think like 65% of our listenership is American. But like genuinely, I think it's one part novelty and one part associating it with like going on vacations and trips. And yeah, I would absolutely celebrate by going to Olive Garden if I got to interview K.A. Applegate. That would be like peak me.
Not to be whatever, but that's also a good reason, I guess, to, like, if you join the Patreon, we can all go to Olive Garden.
It's true. It's true.
And the story hall.
Exactly. Because we're gonna have our live panel at MFF. I don't know if the Olive Garden dinner will be right after the podcast panel itself, just because they put us at 12:30 on the Sunday. So like it would be more of a lunch at that point. I haven't like figured out the details, but if you are on the Patreon, you get dibs on coming with me to dinner. I pay for the Ubers. It's great. You get to watch me inhale like 4 baskets of breadsticks because I can't stop eating the carbs. It's super fun.
Come hang out.
Come hang out.
Speaking of the convention, one of the things I've really noticed is that convention episodes feel so different from your normal episodes. The energy and everything. I wanted to know, do you enjoy these more or like equally to your regular scheduled program? Like, is this something that you are like convention episodes near and dear to your heart, or are they just a pain?
I'm going to be real with you. They're my favorite fucking thing. It feeds into my theater kid energy. I love to perform. I love having an audience. There's a reason why I'm also into exhibitionism. Like, I love getting to do those, and I really cherish them because it is a privilege at the end of the day. Like, the con doesn't have to give me a slot. Like, I'm nobody to them, and that's understandable. So every time that I have gotten to do them, I have absolutely relished it, because not only do I get to like talk about stuff I love with an audience listening, but also we almost always get to have a really fun interplay with the audience. And I think that's the thing that I love the most about them, because you know, we never know what kind of questions we're going to get, and sometimes that's for better and sometimes that's for worse. But I mean, to be clear, broadly speaking, it's been very good. But I think getting to feed off of the energy while we're talking about stuff adds this je ne sais quoi to it that really makes it special. And especially like you hear them in a lot of the live recordings. Like you get to hear the ambient laughter at things. You get to hear every so often, like, you know, we'll have an episode where someone like shouts out something that like alters the trajectory of the podcast that's being recorded or whatever. And it's just fun. I think like in particular as well, the people I've gone to do the live episodes with have also been really good at feeding off of that same energy. So like, Aang and Abe have done it with me at Anthrocon more than once. Those have been really fun. I've done it with Toledo at MFF. I've also done it with Days at MFF. I've had the chance to do it with Libra at MFF as well as at FE. And like, I think all of those have just had like an element of having guests who are also in on the joke, so to speak, in terms of like being down for what we're going to talk about and everything. And in particular, I think the second Anthrocon one I did with Aang and Abe was really well received from people because we inadvertently, but like on purpose, I guess, we're helping people understand how to do world building. And I felt like that was a really interesting conversation. And also we were all on very little sleep. So we were also a little bit loopy and therefore funnier. So this is a long way of me saying that like, if every episode could be a con episode, I would do it in a heartbeat. It would be absolutely delightful, but obviously that's not possible. But I do get to relish, or I do really relish when I get to do those kinds of live episodes.
Oh yeah, I can definitely see that. You guys, you and Libra were incredible at FE last year, where you reacted
we
into
swapped
each
shirts.
other. Yeah,
yeah.
That was great. The energy was fantastic, and I felt like that was just really a privilege to be part of.
Yeah, no, I loved that.
Yeah. So since the convention episodes are, they're your favorite thing, is there anything about the podcast in general? Do you have a least favorite?
A least favorite thing about the podcast or a least favorite something else?
Podcast.
What's my least favorite thing about the podcast? Oh, that's hard. Can I say season 1? No, too soon. No, in all honesty, I think the thing that's perhaps my least favorite, and this is more on me than anyone else, but I think the grind of the schedule is something that I do dread sometimes. I think doing it on a weekly basis has been such an incredible challenge at times. And I think there have been periods in which that was probably noticeable to the listeners in the sense of like, we're at like, I don't know, like season whatever episode 15 and it's like, okay, these guys are clearly running behind. They pulled some topic out of their ass and they're just making it work because they had to do an episode that week. And I think that it's always been better when we forced ourselves to do an episode, even if the quality wasn't like 100% what I'd ideally want it to be. But I think the schedule is and again, this has been a self-imposed thing, but it's something I am thinking about, like in terms of like future stuff, because it's pretty grinding to do it on a weekly basis. And I don't like to admit it, but I definitely underestimated how much work it was going to be at the start. And then because I'm a stubborn bitch, again, it was like, well, I'm just going to keep this going. I don't give a shit what the consequences are. And like, I think for the most part, whatever trade-offs I've had to make to continue it on a weekly basis up till this point have been worth it. I just think about also like long-term longevity and getting to be able to keep doing this. It's definitely something I'm thinking about right now. Because yeah, sometimes, we as people, unfortunately, we're human for now, and we have our own, we have our own periods where like life is hard and like shit happens. And like, sometimes we're not always in the best headspace to like record a podcast, but like if we've locked ourselves into a schedule, then it's like, well, I'm going to put on my best showman face, make this work, even if like there's some dumpster fire going on behind me in my personal life, because that's showbiz, baby. The show must go on. So anyways, I would say that's probably the least favorite thing about the podcast for me, at least like right now.
I can imagine I imagine it's difficult to focus on anything if your life is on fire, because I mean, how are you supposed to interview people and be witty and such if your heart is absolutely not in it?
Yeah, it's tough. I've definitely been able to like push through it at points, but it's not the best feeling. So,
well, if the podcast itself transforms, is that not on brand?
You know what? You're not wrong. I hate to admit that you're not wrong there.
So, I mean, food for thought. and something to perhaps quiet the perfectionist who's like, well, rather the stubborn bitch who's like, no, every week
Yes.
now. Um, it's like, no, baby, we have podcasts at home.
We have
We don't need,
podcasts at home.
yeah. So to kind of sum up a bit, what is your greatest takeaway from 4 years?
Oh, you really saved the easy ones for later. Oh boy. Okay, I think one of the greatest things I've taken away from this podcast is the breadth of the TF community as a whole. I want to mention in particular, like, we've had a chance to have a lot of really cool people come on the show who work within like the TTRPG space. And like, I think of like in particular like the Sin Switch team, Duck, who really was like the nexus of connecting me to other TTRPG people, so many of them who have like made games and such. I didn't even like really realize that was like a thing, that like people were making TTRPGs that dealt with transformation, and like, so getting like, for example, to get connected with like the 2Change team and like actually working with them on that project, getting to talk to like people like Aranya about the IODM project that was also with Duck, getting to talk to someone who's not really in the TF space with Adrian, and like understanding his perspective with making like an Animorphs inspired game, or getting to talk with Bounce or Duhad, like I think that is in its like kind of like it's a perfect example of this is truly a limitless space. Like we have people who are interested in this, who are making things in areas of media would never have even thought of. And so I think like as a broad takeaway, just realizing and remembering that this community truly doesn't have any limits is something that's very heartening. I'll also say, there's been very, very few episodes where I'm like, oh man, I came away with this with like, I wasn't thrilled with the conversation or whatever. I find like 98% of the time people are really interesting. And, I think about the term Sonder a lot in relation to this podcast because for our non-native English speakers, it's a word unique to English to some degree that kind of describes the feeling of how every single person has their own unique, complex life that's just as rich and complex as your own. And I have a really deep appreciation for that concept and that feeling. And I feel like that is something that I really take away from this podcast, because everyone has done like their own thinking on what it is that they enjoy about transformation, what got them into it, how they work stuff into their art, what their influences were, what kind of like, different sort of tropes they want to like integrate. I find that to be really heartening, just that this community has so much thought and effort and love put into it. And I think this podcast has at its core been a celebration of that. So that would be like my critical takeaway, I would say.
I was going to say that it does feel pretty amazing to tune in sometimes and just talk, like hear you and Libra talk to people that I would have never found on my own per se, and how that kind of brings everybody together, because the guests are exposing like tender parts of themselves on your podcast for us to listen to, and it makes you definitely feel less alone in what is a pretty niche space, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shout out to everyone who has been a guest on this 4-year journey. This podcast could not exist without you.
No, I really got to say this podcast would not exist without all the guests that have come on. And honestly, I would say that like, what am I trying to say here? I think that one of the things I haven't mentioned, but is very important to say as well, is like, not only is this podcast a product of the people who've come on, it's also been saved more than once by external people who have then come in and helped out. So like, for example, I gotta say, like, every so often I'll go on vacation and, Libra has stepped in to do episodes then. I think in particular as well, when I was just starting to get the show off the ground again in season 2, Doran really helped like convince me to get it like restarted again, and like helped with like some of those episodes too, and bringing on some initial guests. And I know that like it wasn't something he could necessarily keep up with, but without him, the show would not have restarted. So I really have to like give him credit there. And also you, I gotta say, like, we've had some really fun episodes talking before in the past too. And like, having you here interviewing me, like, this was your idea. And I was like, damn, that's a great idea. Let's fucking do it. I think you've really helped form the show as well too. So I gotta say thank you for that as well.
Well, it's a pleasure to support you guys. It's, this podcast was something that I've never really been a listener to a podcast, but I guess if you have a YouTube video on while you draw, it's kind of a podcast. So this podcast has been my friend on many a late night commission drawing journey. So I felt like it was time that someone kind of return the favor and let you speak about the things that you've accomplished, the things that you've loved about this thing, because I've very much loved getting to know everyone. The Patreon server is a complete riot, and even though I am a lurker,
it is.
Everyone there is really, really awesome. Once again, particular bias shout out to Stormy for being that bitch. We love you.
She really is that bitch.
She really is. Go off, queen. I will see you at FE.
Also, I'm just, because my brain, I feel like, sorry, this is a side tangent. I almost feel like I'm at the academy and I've got this like sheet of paper that I'm trying to read off of when I talk about all the people who have impacted the podcast. And like, it goes to the floor and I'm like trying to like pull it up to be like, oh, and I can't forget this person and I can't forget that person. I need to mention, because I forgot to mention before, Hornbuckle was an absolute delight to have on at the live episode at FWA. He is a gem. He is a saint, honestly, and his work is amazing. And I had forgotten to mention him earlier. He was a big part of getting me to do live episodes too, because I had done one with Toledo at the time before, but I wasn't sure if I could do one with someone I didn't necessarily know quite as well, and he knocked it out of the park. So I have to mention him before I forget. And I'm definitely forgetting other people. And also Pez, because Pez has been our FA correspondent, and I love her to bits. And we wouldn't have had half as fun with the FA episodes if we didn't have her. So I need to make sure I mention her as well.
Those nails took me out completely and utterly.
Yes.
Also, a particular shout out to Honey Bear for all of the visual work that they have done.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes. God, I am so scattered right now. I need to take like 5 minutes for Bear now, because I can't believe I didn't mention that yet. Bear has done such an incredible job with all of the artwork, working with Libra on like the thumbnails and such. Bear has done a lot of really wonderful custom artwork as well for the podcast. In particular, I think about the redesign of the logos that they did with Libra. Also, the work that they did for our TTRPG episode. They drew custom outfits for both of our characters, and I got to be Herlock Sholmes, and that was one of the most incredible things ever. I still think about that picture. It's so funny and it's so good. And, Bear has also come on to a number of different episodes too, and I just really, truly, genuinely appreciate their perspective. I think like they definitely come at things from a different perspective from me too, in terms of like their interactions with the community and like what they've kind of encountered and their like inspirations and stuff. I mean, like, shout out to like Hellboy and such. But be completely remiss if I didn't mention them too. I'm definitely forgetting more people now. I'm acutely aware I'm forgetting people now, but Bear has truly, like, we would not have the incredible art for this podcast without them. And I am just so appreciative of that, and also the time that they've spent at times to help with issues that have come up in the Patreon server too. So yeah, another person that this show would not exist without.
So, happy birthday, TF Tuesday podcast. You are 4 years old
Yay.
and you've been on a hell of a journey. And you've gone through a lot of changes. Her.
Yes, haha.
I do have two more rapid fire questions and then we'll wrap this up. One is,
Okay.
why is Merge TF made from Satan?
Oh my God, yes. So, in the beginning, there was like the whole God dude who made like the Earth in like 6 days or whatever the fuck, and Satan made Merge TF at the same time. He was working on that. That was his finest creation, and then he inflicted it on me and you specifically during the film Color Out of Space. And let me tell you something, I will never look at Merge TF the same way again. Listen, I can enjoy my like Upside Down TF, my like CTF, Tail TF, like those things are technically kind of merged, but like I'm counting them separately because you cannot take that away from me. But Merge TF, oh my God, the work of Satan. I cannot get out of my head the picture of a mother and her child being fused in opposite directions. That was horrific. That was horrible. I jumped out of my seat and I clung on to Ty because fuck that shit. So fuck Merge TF. All my homies hate Merge TF, and it is absolutely the work of Satan.
Sorry to all the Merge TF artists. You guys are all incredibly talented. It's just that Color Out of Space has permanently altered my brain chemistry, and I react with a fear response. There is no second involved. Yeah.
It's just, yeah, no, I can't with that shit. It's so bad. I hate it. I hate it so much.
I don't blame you at all. Another question I have, that's kind of rapid fire off the cuff. Why did we not murder the pool toy boyfriend in that story? Like, I feel like we should have crossed parallel universe boundaries and beat pool toy collector boyfriend to death. I feel like that should have happened.
Oh, geez. Well, it is a fictional story, so it's kind of difficult to kill a fictional character. That being said, I think there's still an open investigation with the FBI that's looking into these disappearances to try and triangulate his location. So if you have any information at all that you can share with the investigators who are looking into these poor missing men who have been turned into pool toys, please reach out, give a tip on Crime Stoppers. You could save a life from becoming a pool toy. Or don't. I'm not your mother, but I think some of these people would probably appreciate it. We probably can't turn them back from pool toys, and truly that is such a shame. But we could stop him from inflicting that on more people, and I'm just using this as a public service announcement. It's truly a tragedy how many people get turned into pool toys by the pool toy boyfriend, and I definitely don't want to find him to figure out how that works. That's definitely not my intention. Absolutely not. I can't believe you're even considering it right now. How dare you?
All right. Please hit up Zill's DMs if you actually have any information on the pool toy TF boyfriend.
Please.
For $1 a day, you can support recovered pool toy boyfriend.
They're all stuck in states of like, they're starting to like turn back, but they're not like fully like able to move on their own. There was a guy I saw, he had like the full perma face, and his eyes are wide open, and he's still got like the tail, and like he's got the valve and everything, but like he's got human legs now. Like it's slowly like reverting, but he's in like this weird state. And honestly, like seeing someone with like just the human legs and also the rest is like pool toy with the little like flappy flippers of like an orca, for example, like it's tough out there for them. So for $1 a day, you can help these people as they go to physio and continue to regain their sense of mobility through their legs, which they hadn't had until 5 days ago.
Yeah, also like pools are expensive, so consider.
Pools are so expensive. It's so hard for these somewhat former pool toys. We got to look out for them.
So, with that, I think we're going to hit audience questions.
Oh, yes.
Stormy asks, why don't we answer our DMs in a timely fashion? Would you like to go first or Ty?
I think you should go first.
Sure. Stormy, if you were paying attention to the beginning of the episode, I am just now coming out of my cage, and I am doing just fine now. That took a while. So hit me up again, and I promise I will probably message you right after this episode. I'm sorry, girl. I love you.
My response to that is, it's really rich coming from her when she knows that half the time I'm like a pool toy and I can't be using my keyboard. So, like, I'm sorry, if you message me while I'm in pool toy mode, I won't know that you messaged me. And when I come back, I'm like, oh God, I have so many things to catch up of. And it's difficult to like parse through them all, especially when I have a limited amount of time before my fingers all stick together again. So it's just the nature of being pool toy. Jesus, I don't know what to tell you.
It's really hard.
It's so hard for me specifically, okay? I can't even believe you're asking me that question. Do you know how insensitive it is to my flippers? Like, my God.
Please, Stormy, consider your words. We actually have a real question. And it's from Stormy again, because once again, Stormy is that bitch.
Oh, yeah.
If you had to spend a week as an animal living in downtown Toronto, or I'm sorry, I have to say it as a native, Toronto, what would you pick and how would you manage?
Okay. I think I gotta go with the easy answer, unfortunately, and I'm sorry to disappoint people if they thought I was gonna be more inventive here, but I gotta go with raccoon because raccoon is uniquely suited to Toronto. Look, like nobody gives raccoons a second glance. They are the natural animal of Toronto, and like, they have kind of opposable thumbs, I think. Yes. So they can like, use their little hands to get into things and places that maybe they shouldn't, but that also includes getting food. So it would be the easiest way to feed yourself because you can gimme the garbage and live off of the trash. And then, no one is going to think twice about a raccoon digging through the trash. I think I would manage just fine. I have observed them many times. I know what the normal raccoon approach is. You got to have like a specific gait so that your belly wobbles. It's very important. But
Wiggling and
I would
jiggling.
wiggling and jiggling, but
Yeah.
I genuinely think I would be fine as a raccoon in downtown Toronto for a week. Like that would be easy mode.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that. I can't think of raccoons without thinking of this story that I read. I think it was from a Reddit thread where a guy went camping and he must have had food in his tent, but he woke up to what he said were like so many tiny, grasping little demon child hands going over him, looking for him for crumbs.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's the first thing I think of when I think of raccoons, them just invading your tent and waking you up in some kind of Silent Hill, Signalis-esque horror moment where you're like, oh God, please let me wake up and this not be real.
Yes. Oh my God.
You're gonna hate me.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Don't do this. I know what you're gonna do. Don't do it.
I have to.
Oh, don't do it.
I have to.
Okay.
So, know that I love you. So my original answer was going to be, I kind of cycled through, so let me just run through my thought process. So the original thing is tiger, because if you have to transform, you should always pick the one that would make you go balls to the wall. Why wouldn't I want to be a tiger? Right. I could run to the wild, unsettled Canadian North and be a Canadian tiger. Like, that's interesting. Why not? I mean, but I don't think I would make it far out of Toronto because the traffic is atrocious. The fucking underpass almost killed me, and I'm a human being, so never mind. The next one I was going to do was pigeon because I just feel like I should shit on the cars of the officials who said that you shouldn't feed the pigeons in Toronto. Fuck all of you. They do not carry diseases, y'all. This is pigeon slander. Pigeons are very clean unless you eat their poop, and maybe don't do that,
Yeah,
please.
maybe don't do that.
That's kind of really gross. But the undisputed king,
Don't do it.
it is the Canadian goose.
No! No! You lie! You lie!
And do I?
You do, but continue your answer.
Nothing inspires fear and awe quite like the goose. I have walked the path around the lake and had entire families go out of the way of geese and their little geeselets, and I have been hissed at, and I have pet one, and they ain't all that. There were a lot of bark and no bite. I really truly don't give a shit. I will grab that hoe by the neck. So maybe I'm telling on myself on my own weakness there, but also, like, can you imagine you weigh exactly maybe a pound or 2 or 10, and you have grown men and women fleeing for their lives because you just so happen to hiss? That's incredible.
I'm so disappointed in you. I can't believe you said that on this podcast. How
Well,
could you speak to geese when you know that they killed my grandma?
Big Maria might need to review her priorities if she got taken out by Canadian geese. That's all I'm saying.
No, Big Maria was fine, okay? She killed her husband back in the day and she was fine. She ran that shit. It was tight. No geese would take her down, but she would be disappointed in you for speaking good about him.
Well, I will not be going back in my cage because I am doing just fine. So my apologies, Big Maria. You light a candle for Big Maria, everyone.
I will.
All right. So, everyone, thank you for listening. Thank you, Zil, for being absolutely a gem. And thank you to all of those mentioned: Libra, Bear, Toledo, Doran, Stormy, Angraboda, all of you. Thank you for helping make this podcast what it is today. Thank you all for being so fantastic. Love to this wonderful and crazy community we have going on. Everybody listening, please stay TFE.
Hell yeah. We'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.